So, hi, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Gen Z developers. And the reason why I want to talk about them is, first of all, because I'm a millennial and I've noticed there's quite a few differences between how Gen Z developers work and how, well, I used to work or work nowadays. And I'd like to summarize these subjective thoughts in this video. And before we start, of course, I'd like to tell you a disclaimer. I'm not trying to generalize the whole generation into one small video. I'll be talking about things that I've experienced myself, and they're quite subjective. Yours may vary, your experience may vary, and you might meet different people than I did. And this whole video is just like my observations. They're not here to generalize everything, but still a few things I like to say about stuff that I noticed, and that's what we're gonna do. So a small reminder, Gen Z is the ones who are at most 27-year-old right now. So I would say they're between junior and mid-level developers at this moment, like in 2024 in April. And I've noticed that, first of all, Gen Zs are very susceptible to the TikTok or YouTube influencers. As you know, or as I see, that TikTok is quite popular amongst the younger generation, and they're swiping and they're seeing all of these influencers who are telling them that you can make 500,000 per year as your entry-level salary if you go to software engineering. There's quite a few influencers on TikTok and YouTube who are propagating this idea that IT is easy money and that you should be expecting raises every 5 days, and those raises are going to be huge, and basically your whole work trajectory is just like a rocket up to the moon. And as you know, if you've been in this industry quite long, that's not really true. So first of all, I'm not even sure why Gen Zs have such a high expectations about their raises. Why do they think their worth after 6 or 12 months is so high to the company? And why do they have this expectation that they're going to be receiving raises every 6 years, every 6 months, for example? And really, I think their expectation of the value that they bring and the salary that they're expecting, there's a discrepancy in those estimates. And I think that comes from the influencers who are telling them that juniors earn 250K and everyone should earn like that. But in reality, at most, not at most, I'm not gonna throw any numbers because it varies from city to city, but it's way below that number. So that's the first thing that I've noticed, that there's a huge expectation of salary frequency, salary raise frequency, raise amount, and in general, the whole compensation package is quite big. The expectation for that is quite big, which is not like that in the reality. The next point that I want to mention is that I've talked with a few Gen Z developers who are open about job hopping. They're open to about that. There's no loyalty to the company. They're not the generation that's going to be spending 3 to 5 years working for a single company. They're open to job hop. Again, in terms of short-term salary gain, I think that's fine. But a more long-term approach, I think that's going to be more hurtful rather than beneficial. But again, if your short-term goal is to raise your salary fast, then job hopping is the way to go. But staying at one company, I still think it's more beneficial to you as a developer in terms of skills and your growth, because if you're job hopping, then there's a huge amount of time where you're getting onboarded. You're not getting to the point of full efficiency, and yes, you can consume the resources of other companies to get more education, more mentorship, but again, in the end, you're wasting potential. You're stopping at the point when it really gets fun. And I think Gen Z is they're open to that concept. They're open to this job hopping concept. Again, totally fine with me as long as they're happy with that. This is just the thing that I've noticed. And next thing that I want to talk about is I've noticed that Gen Z, or the developers that are Gen Z that I work with, they don't really have that desire to get better outside of the job. So they have a clear distinction. This is my work life. This is my life, normal life, leisure time or whatever. And I'm not saying that's bad, but it's more like if I compare that to how I was before, like when I was 25 or even 20, I was always programming. I was always developing something outside of my job. I was always investing time outside of my professional career into something like again, for me personally, it was a hobby. So I was eager to invest time to building something and to learn some new language, like some obscure thing, like some weird thing that someone mentioned that I was eager to explore. And nowadays, I see that they're eager to learn, but on the job. And I think that's good from one side because, again, they have a clear separation of work and life. I think that's great in terms of like work-life balance. I think that's a great thing that Gen Zs are like really separating that. But in the end, like those that get ahead are usually those that invest time outside of the job. And I'm eager to see how this is going to develop in the future, how people who invest time outside of their job are going to get ahead or not. Maybe I'm wrong. And I'm just eager to see how this develops. The next thing that I noticed that I've been asked quite a few times is flexibility. So when I was hiring Gen Z developers, juniors to mid-level, they were all often asking about flexibility and remote work. So I think the pandemic, which happened like 2 years ago, or I think 2 years ago, it kind of turned Gen Z into this expectation that flexibility is a must. So they need to have remote work, and if they don't, that's not a job for them. Again, I totally understand their point of view. They got to experience this whole world where everyone works remotely, everyone can travel. Okay, travel probably not, but everyone was free and working from home. And I think that kind of changed their perspective on how the work should be. Again, I don't see this as a right or wrong. I think people going to the office who are enjoying going to the office are great. Again, I go to the office, I enjoy that time, but I also sometimes work remotely. I see good and bad things in both sides, and I'm eager to see how this is going to develop in the future because there's again, I think this is still too early to say if that's good or bad. The next thing that I notice is that Gen Z is very open about their mental health issues, their personal life. So they're very transparent in how they communicate. They're very transparent and frank, and that's what I like about them. So they're not afraid to tell you where they're feeling down, where they're not feeling well because they have some kind of issues. And I think that's the way to go. That's definitely like a novel approach because in my days, like millennial, like 10 years ago, it was not really like, I wouldn't say it was prohibited, but it was not like looked good upon if you were talking about mental health or like personal issues at work. Again, I think this varies from work to work, so I wouldn't be, I'm not going to make any statements regarding that, but I just think that Gen Zs who are open and transparent and frank about their feelings, about their emotions, about their mental health, I think that's really a very good direction the industry is taking. So I'm kind of proud of Gen Zs who are really like taking that approach and really like speaking their mind and being open about everything around their lives. The next thing that I want to say is that I was expecting the Gen Zs to be like digital natives. So they were born into this world where every phone is a smartphone. They didn't like see the era where there was no phone or there was no computer. You had to like do other stuff, but they were born into this era where everything is digital. Their whole life is digital. So I was expecting more knowledge, like in general IT terms, from the whole Gen Z generation, because I was expecting like there to be more literacy in terms of IT and how things work, but I've seen the other side of that. So I think Gen Z is quite good at using the tools that were built in the last 20 years, but they're doing that, I think, too much. So for example, all of the AI tools, Copilot, Devin, or whatever it's called right now, like all the LLMs that are used to generate code, they were abused by junior to mid-level developers to generate code. So the problem with that is that when you generate code without really any fundamental knowledge about what the code does and why it does that, then you're wasting potential for the future. You're basically like, you're being fed the information rather like really understanding it and really like eating it yourself, you're getting like it delivered. So like I think that really lowers your potential for the future, because you'll not really understand why you're building stuff. You'll be like copy pasting the same way as some developers like copy pasted from Stack Overflow back in the day. The same way juniors and mid-levels are copying from Stack Overflow without even thinking about why it's written like that. And again, I think that approach really like hinders your professional development if you're copying code from somewhere, especially if you're at a junior level and you're not really like understanding the abstraction. So you see there's this level of abstraction that was built before you. So again, like before my time, like there was abstractions that were built. For example, C is an abstraction over assembly. Assembly is an abstraction over machine code. Machine code is an abstraction over bits and bytes or whatever. So again, there's always a new level of abstraction that was added over the years. And now we're at a position where the abstraction is so high that you basically don't even need so much knowledge to really code something. First of all, like I'd like to say that software engineering is just not just about code. There's like a lot of stuff goes into like building something which is not code. Like code is just like a very small part of what you're gonna do or like doing right now in your life. So like code currently has too many abstractions, and the juniors are not really spending time to understand how those abstractions are built. And I think that's an issue for the future. I think in the future, the current juniors, the current mid-levels are not going to be at a level where current seniors are, because they're not going to understand the fundamentals on why the software works as it does. And the senior level like is going to go down in what is considered a senior level. So I think the value of people over 40, over 50 years old is going to increase, because they're going to be the ones who really understand how the software is built. And the ones who are relying right now too much on the tools, they will be like their worth will be less and less over time, because again, they're not really like improving themselves. They're just relying on a tool that helps them be great. And anyways, like I think like Gen Z has their good and bad sides. Like I think for example, one of the examples of good and bad is like consuming of short bits of information. I don't have any comment to that. I didn't even want to mention that, but I think like the generation is adapted to like short form consumption, and I can't say if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Again, I think you can learn from TikTok videos. I think they can be educational, but I still think the long form content on YouTube or books or whatever, like long form articles, are still gonna stay for long, because there's just so much information, so much knowledge that you can just not get from a short 60-second video. And again, the attention span is getting lower and lower. Again, I'm not really like an anthropologist or like a biologist or whoever is dealing with all these human things. I cannot say if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's definitely like evolving into some direction. I cannot say for sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is a fact that the attention span is getting lower, that the information that they're consuming is getting smaller and smaller. I see with my colleagues who are 30 plus, 40 plus, they're eager to consume books, like long form, hard, professional literature, versus Gen Zs who are more eager to consume like TikToks or like short-term videos, short-term educational videos. Again, not gonna judge which is better. I think there's like merits in both of them, but I'm eager to see how this develops in the future. And I'd also like to ask you, like if you've watched until this point, first of all, press the like button. And second of all, I'd like to ask you for your opinion. What do you think about Gen Zs? What was your experience working with them? And do you agree or disagree with me? Again, I'm open to debating this topic in the comments. If you are a Gen Z, like prove me wrong, like tell me that I'm like the short form content is better than long form, for example, or just like give me your opinion. I'm eager to discuss it with you, and we'll see each other in the next video, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.